Hello everybody, you have tuned in to WCoY on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello everybody, how you doing? As I said in the past, I was going to be covering other cases that are somewhat similar to Brendan's case, to illustrate the kind of seam that's running through our criminal justice system at the moment, and the way that it preys on these juveniles, particularly these mentally limited juveniles in the criminal justice system. And today I'm showing you another one. This one is the story of Corey Williams. For those of you who missed it before, I did a video called The Innocence Deniers. It was about a gentleman named Devontae Sanford, who was very much wrongfully convicted. And it's just horrific. So I'll leave the link to that one below, first link there in the information below this video, for anyone that wants to go check that one out. But yes, Devontae Sanford, very similar, about 16 years old, or maybe even, he might even have been 15 or so, but and had some mental limitations and was basically bullied into confessing. So I'm going to continue to go on with these cases like this that show this similar theme. And today we're talking about Corey Williams. So this case is just horrific when you look at it. It's obvious to anybody who did this, and this could have been done correctly in the first place. And you can't help but wonder why it wasn't. What in the world were these officers thinking to not go after the guys who obviously did it and to target this poor kid? And wait till you hear how they find this kid. And I mean, this is an absolute, this right here is just scary. Let me put it that way. It's just scary when you kind of think about this, and how these investigators just basically ignored what was obvious and right in front of them. Yeah, just shocking, really. So I'll go ahead and we're gonna go ahead and get into the article here. I'll also leave a link. I will leave the article down below in the information below the video for those that want to go ahead and read that. It's a pretty long article. It actually goes into talking about some of the issues there with the Cato Parish, which is where this took place in Shreveport, Louisiana. So anyways, for those of you who want to read the full article and stuff, you can definitely do that. I'll leave the link for you below. But now we'll go into basically the story of what happened to Corey Williams, and we'll come on back at the end. So here we have a kid who's a lot like Brendan. 16-year-old kid, IQ of about 68. Various encounters with well, in Brendan's case it's the special classes, and in this case for this kid it's institutionalized multiple times for intellectual disability. But anyways, so this story kind of punctuates sometimes how I feel about the way law enforcement looks at some of these vulnerable juveniles, especially the ones that seem to be a little bit limited. They see them as a way of scapegoating, and that's exactly what happens here. So everybody can see, and it's an absolute tragedy what ends up happening. But at least it's not all bad, I guess. So we'll just get to it. On the evening of January 4th, 1998, in Shreveport, Louisiana, a group of neighborhood friends came up with an idea. They would order a pizza. The delivery man, 23-year-old Jarvis Griffin, arrived at the house where a group of friends, including 16-year-old Corey Williams and 20-year-old Chris Moore, nicknamed Rapist, were hanging out. At the time, according to court filings from Williams' attorneys, Williams was known as someone who would take the fall for anyone. What one might refer to as a chump, a family member said. He reportedly had an IQ of 68 and had been institutionalized multiple times for intellectual disability, and suffered from a severe case of lead poisoning. After delivering the pizza and collecting his money, Griffin returned to his car. Soon afterward, he was slumped over the wheel, dead from gunshots. Witnesses, including Williams himself, initially told investigators that several men were involved in shooting and robbing Griffin, including then 16-year-old Gabriel Logan, his older brother Nathan Logan, and Moore, the rapist guy. During interrogations, however, the older boys and Logan the Logan brothers and the rapist directed police to the gun and claimed that Williams had shot Griffin, after which they all divvied up the money. So you get it, right? These guys, the Logan brothers and this guy, the rapist, had all split up all the money and divvied it up amongst them three. The kid, Corey Williams, didn't have any of this money, and yet what happens still happens. But the physical evidence didn't match up. The only fingerprints on the gun were Nathan Logan's, who was never charged. The only blood was on Gabriel Logan's shirt. The gun was the rapist's, and the money, Williams didn't have any of it. The other men had split the proceeds. Instead, Williams was found that evening by law enforcement trembling and urine-soaked at his grandmother's house. Huddled under a sheet, he had peed his pants out of fear of the older boys. Still, he was dragged to the police station that night. In his first interview with police, Williams said that he had seen Gabriel Logan shoot the victim. He also told police that Gabriel had called him and threatened to kill him if he didn't take the fall for the crime. But at 8:30 the next morning, after 12 hours of continuous interrogation and no sleep, he confessed to shooting the driver. He then asked if he could go home and lie down. Sound familiar? If he could go home and lie down. Like going back to school, maybe somewhat similar to that, possibly. Not long after, Williams insisted he was innocent and his confession false. But in October of 2000, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sent to death row. Rapist was the star prosecution witness who testified against Williams. This sentence was later commuted to life without parole after a judge determined that Williams is intellectually disabled and therefore not eligible for the death penalty. Nonetheless, up until May 21st, he was still serving time in Angola prison. Then on May 22nd, in a surprise settlement agreement, the Caddo Parish District Attorney's Office agreed to release Williams immediately in exchange for a plea of manslaughter, basically an Alford plea. This was a tremendous turnaround, a victory for which Williams had fought for 2 decades, first largely on his own, but increasingly with a growing base of support. In recent years, as the movement to hold corrupt prosecutors accountable has grown, Williams' case has become a symbol for the most flagrant prosecutorial abuse, as well as all that is broken in Louisiana's criminal justice system. With this release, justice finally seemed to prevail. I suppose. At least he gets out, and at least he's going to get the rest of his life to be able to have a family or do whatever it is that he wants at 36 years old. But it's just a tragedy what law enforcement will do. I mean, why did they obviously ignore these 3 gentlemen that obviously were the ones that did it? They had the money that they had split amongst themselves. I mean, how on earth did they go after this kid, and how did the prosecutors allow this to happen? I mean, how did all the checks and balances of the system fail and allow this to happen? Yet Williams' freedom also came at a price. While the deal gets Williams, now 36, out of prison, it disqualifies him from compensation and leaves a man who has always insisted on his innocence with a murder conviction. It also fails to hold any of the parties who played a role in the conviction of Williams, the police, the prosecutor, the judge, no account. Clearly, Williams' attorneys must have believed that this was the best way to get him out of prison. This is an impossible deal for Corey to turn down. Amir Ali, an attorney with the MacArthur Justice Center, which helped represent Williams, told the Washington Post. I think given the circumstances, it was the best possible outcome for Corey. Basically, that the state and the name of this something parish, Caddo Parish, where this, I guess, particularly took place. Yeah, they basically knew that they were never going to get full satisfaction in the sense of them admitting that they made a mistake and that sort of stuff. And so the best they could do was at least get him out. And that's sad, because I mean, it's obvious. There's so many of these cases where the police have taken a young juvenile kid, particularly one with some limitations of some sort, and have coerced him into saying he committed a crime that he didn't commit, and it's obvious in retrospect when you go back and look and go, geez, like with Devontae Sanford, for instance. I mean, the actual hitman who did it came in and turned himself in, and basically gave an affidavit saying that Devontae Sanford had nothing to do with it, and everything. This was all 8 days after Devontae Sanford's conviction, and yet Devontae Sanford ended up spending, I believe, 15 years in prison. It could have been just 8 days. Imagine, and he got almost $500,000 for 15 years. Imagine how much less money the state of Michigan, which isn't exactly, you know, flush with money right now. They got their own problems there, particularly like Flint and that sort of stuff. But, you know, how much it would have saved the state of Michigan if this would have been, if the right thing would have been done 8 days after the conviction, when the hitman came and turned himself in and it was clearly obvious that he had done it and not Devontae Sanford. How much less damage it would have been, you know, to have to pay Devontae Sanford and stuff for only 8 days, or say a year that the prosecution of him took, or whatever like that. Just imagine how much less it would have been, is my point. And yet, you know, this is the kind of stuff that we're always going to be facing going forward here. And I'm glad that some places are starting to really take this seriously. They're really starting to rein in the prosecutors, because they're starting to realize that it's really has become more about chasing convictions and less about seeking justice. And, you know, this is America, land of the free, home of the brave, and it's supposed to work a certain way. And I think some people are starting to realize it's a little bit scary out there right now, the way things are. And hopefully we're going to get a little bit of sanity restored to the justice system at some point. So, as a staunch supporter of Brendan Dassey, I will continue to point out things like this, because what happened to Corey Williams is ridiculous. I mean, right? Am I right? Isn't it pretty freaking obvious that those 3 other guys had done it? Doesn't it make you wonder why the cops were ignoring that obvious fact and going after Corey Williams anyway? It's just a little bit bizarre. And then the guy who's nicknamed Rapist ends up being the star witness at Corey Williams' trial. I mean, really? That is, like, truly disturbing. Like, wow. Really disturbing. The one thing I want to look into a little bit more with this case, I want to find out what kind of criminal career Rapist and the 2 Logan brothers went on to have after the police looked the other way on this one. I'm curious. I actually want to know. I'm wondering, you know, if they truly stopped at robbing a pizza boy and killing him. You know, that poor guy, just trying to make a buck delivering pizzas, and because of some punks who aren't willing to go and work for their money, decide they're going to shoot him and take what little money he has there from delivering pizzas. It's just, you know, ridiculous. But how in the heck they were ignored so that they could victimize this 16-year-old kid who clearly had limitations, and just, I mean, when they found him, he was soaked in his own urine. He was pissing himself because he was so scared because of the older boys. You know, the thought that creeps to mind is these officers were willfully ignoring how obvious it was that these other older boys had done it. What was their motivation for that? That's just the thing that keeps occurring to me as I think about this, right? So that's you know, this is disturbing stuff. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and keep calling attention to all the stuff like this that I possibly can. for those of you who are up on the control question and understand what is so wrong with the control question and how it absolutely is not proof of Brendan resisting officers, that it is absolutely proof the opposite of that he was afraid to be in disagreement with the officers, that he was showing how malleable he is in the hands of the officers and stuff. Got the control question t-shirts coming very, very soon. Within the week, hopefully. They're being sent to me this week, so I should have them by the weekend. So they are on their way. I even bought an extra, purchased even some more shirts, so there's going to be a lot of shirts. They're $15 each. As I said, the profits go to Brendan. Obviously the shirt maker gets a little bit for making the shirts. So anyways, they're $15 each. I tried to keep the price as low as possible. I get nothing at all for them. If you wear them with pride, that's how you're paying me. That's how you're paying WCoY. Wear it out in public with pride and hope for that people will come up and engage you about it. That's all the payment I need. So just so you know. Anyways, just so you know, if you don't know what the shirts look like, here they are. Alright, so this is what they look like. This is the colors they come in, between sizes medium to XXL. And I'll go ahead and give you a little close-up so you can see closer what's on the shirts. So they have the difference from the original limited edition shirts, where these actually say hashtag Brendan Dassey up at the top. Kind of puts everything into perspective what it's referring to. It says, ask me about the control question. Copyright WCoY of 2018. So yeah, if you guys are interested, you can go to the WCoY MAM Facebook page, and there will be a post there to inform you of how to get it to you and that sort of stuff. So like I said, you can go to that page on Facebook to find out more. Hopefully by the end of the week, when I finally have them in my possession. Alright. So as I said, I'm going to keep calling attention to cases like this that have a lot of parallels with Brendan Dassey. I have no intention of letting it go with Brendan Dassey in any way, shape, or form. What happened to him is wrong. That's why when it comes to the federal judges on this, they were split 4-4. The fact is, I do hope that Laura Nyrider and Steve Drizzen and Robert Dvorak and Brendan's legal team are not discouraged, because really, after what I learned going through the process with Brendan and everything he went through on his habeas trip through the federal courts, is that AEDPA is a huge hurdle for anybody on habeas, or anybody on habeas review. It's a huge hurdle. And the fact of the matter is that Laura Nyrider and Steve Drizzen and Brendan's legal team were able to argue it so effectively that they were able to split the federal judges, even with AEDPA. I think it's a feather in their cap. I think it's a credit to them, and I believe they're knocking at the door. And pretty soon they're right now obviously talking about what the next move is, what they're going to be doing next and everything, and I personally can't wait to see what it is, but they're knocking at the door. They've already shot so many holes in this case, brought forth what Len Kaczynski did with O'Kelly. Now they've gone through and have basically made a mockery of this coerced confession, and made an absolute mockery of it. And even though the en banc review mysteriously suddenly went the opposite direction that everybody thought it might after Brendan had won twice, and the Supreme Court of the United States basically decided it wasn't it wasn't important enough for them to hear it, I guess. But I think they're gonna be finding something soon, something else that they can use in Brendan's case that they can then go back and file for post-conviction relief again. They're gonna keep going at it, because look at how ridiculous it is. It's like the picture that I'm gonna leave you with on the way out. And it's a political cartoon that a friend of mine made, and I think it's absolutely brilliant, but it absolutely illustrates what it's like with Brendan's case at this point. in this political cartoon. So I'll leave you with that on the way out of this one. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you. So I had an idea for this cartoon. I made a rough kind of sketch about it and stuff, and handed it over to somebody who's a really great artist, and they really put in the facial expressions here on Kratz and Fassbender here. But yeah, this camel is like, I got to making the statement of, you know, how much big is this mountain of straw gonna have to be before it breaks the camel's back, that is Brendan's case, you know, with everything that's happened in it. And so that's where you got these bales of hay that are labeled for all the things that are just obviously wrong with his case, and you know, obviously the Acme back brace and that sort of stuff. So we made this, and then another friend of mine was inspired after seeing it that they would have loved to have seen this political cartoon on the cover of Time, and so they took a little time to kind of generate this cover. It hasn't actually been on the cover of Time. This is just something somebody made, kind of wishful thinking, really. But I thought it was just brilliant. The artist really nailed it, nailed my vision on this, and it was just so awesome. So I thought I'd share it with everybody else here. But yeah, that's what we're talking about with Brendan's case, man. It just keeps piling up. It just keeps on piling up. Eventually, no matter what, this camel is just gonna buckle under the weight of all of what's wrong with his case. But so that's it for today, folks. We'll see ya.